Thanks everybody for showing up. I know that building dirt jumps down in a hole that floods a lot may not be the best idea, but everybody loves this area enough that we're trying to save it. So a little background history. These jumps have been here for a really long time. This trail's been here for a really long time, and it's notorious for road digging. People, kids of all ages, go down there, dig jumps. Every year, every time there's a heavy rain, they get washed away and the shape completely changes. Sediment gets basically washed everywhere, and they're always having to be rebuilt, and they're always receiving new maintenance. And the city and parks doesn't really look kindly on unauthorized digging. Unlike places like Utah and Arizona, New Mexico, we don't have any public land here. It's all city owned, so we have to have permission from Parks and Recreation to build pretty much anything.
Riders coming through.
And they're pretty easy with working with us. We submit a design, there's a process to it. We submit a design, they approve it. Then if they feel like coming out and walking the site to address any concerns they may have, we listen to them at that time. Their focus is mainly not disturbing the habitat, the rainwater runoff, the drainage. They want to preserve all that. They want to keep it as best that they can. If the water pools when it floods, then it breeds mosquitoes. It causes further erosion damage, and they don't like that. We also have friends of McAllister Park with us here today, and they have a lot of invaluable input regarding the trees, the plants, the foliage, and the wildlife that we also have to preserve if we want to build what we want. Now, recently there was some digging here that made the jumps bigger than they were before, with a steeper takeoff than they were before, and people were complaining about it. But that's not the only thing people were complaining about. They're also complaining about the trees, the erosion to some of the trees. If you go down this trail a little bit further, you'll see that there's one big tree that's already broken off and fallen down. There's several other trees where half of the roots are hanging out over the drop, and it looks like they're about to fall. Some of those may need to have like a little fence put in front of the tree, but every time somebody rides off next to it, every time it rains, more and more of that dirt gets eroded off of the roots. So we want to try to protect the trees that are in danger of falling, and we also want to rebuild these lines so that they're safer, easier to use, and there's more uniformity for progression. So right now our idea is this: a return line down there, and then 4 individual jump lines. We may be able to find a 5th, but right now we're looking at 4. Having the far one on that side being a green beginner line, and we'll put up signs next to each one with a little green circle, a blue square in the middle, and then a black diamond for the big jump line over the long tabletop on this far side. To avoid damaging whatever erosion the rains cause and avoid minimal impact to the roots of the trees, we're suggesting building whatever we build going with the natural terrain that's down there. So on the far left we have a long tabletop, so we want to build a takeoff and a landing on each side of that tabletop and try not to create too much work piling dirt and moving rocks. We think the best way to mitigate erosion and rainwater runoff a base shape of rock first. So we're going to grab a bunch of, not rocks this big, but like the big river rock and bull rock, stack those to get our basic shape. Then hard pack dirt on top of that, and we figure it'll hold up a lot better to the rain, instead of the rain just coming through and washing away a big mound of dirt. We also have access to gas-powered tampers, which will pack it down even harder and make it pretty solid. After the tabletop, if you can clear it, you're going to have a lot of speed. So the second jump or feature should be something that absorbs that speed. And we proposed a step up. Not a big one, just maybe the size of this table, where you jump up here and then you land, roughly over here. And if you clear that, then there'll be a set of rollers, double rollers after that, which you can either gap or will absorb more speed should you find yourself flying through there. Right after that is that right-hand turn on the other end, which will connect into a return line coming back on this side. This meeting is for public input, so at this point I'll open up well, first let me mention about the process. This won't take too long, but it's a process we have to go through. Just like if you build a house, you got to go to the city and ask for a building permit. We have to present our idea to Parks and Recreation in hopes that they'll approve it. And once they approve it, then we can schedule work days and get everybody moving. To deter the road digging that is constantly going on here, I suggested that they let us build a big slope line somewhere else in the park. There can be a slope style line, it just shouldn't be here. There's too many trees to run into, it's just too squirrely. So here, we've got a long tabletop to work with, we've got some rollers to work with, and that's what we can build here. But the reason it got tore down was there was a slope style jump hill. There are better places for that, that's all I'm saying. So, like I said, our idea is a long tabletop, a step up, and then 2 rollers for the far jumps. For these middle jumps, they'll basically be slow progressions. The beginner one will probably just be a long flat rock. And then the 2 intermediate ones will be a little bit bigger, but still rollable for somebody who's a little bit better than the beginner, but not quite confident enough to send the tabletop.
Yeah, my 2 cents is that on the entry over here, is to build it in a manner that would be non-erodible, where it angles upwards, like in this direction here, like not a high angle, but enough angle so that any water that's coming down in this direction here is not going to go down the trail, it's going to go down that way.
And that's exactly why I want to use the large rock, because if we use the large rock as a base shape, water will flow through the rock a lot easier than it will flow through the packed dirt.
And then also not have any 2 trails cross.
Yeah, and you can't really tell by looking at it, but there is a gradual slope going from this end to that end. That's the direction the creek flows. While we're digging it, if we put some little oval shaped cuts in the dirt, then it'll flow that way even better. So there's plenty of ways to mitigate drainage. But part of this meeting is for public input before we submit our proposal to Park. So given what you just heard my idea. I'd like to hear if anybody else has some ideas on what this could look like, what we could build here.
Why not start from the other side, get rid of these roll-ins altogether, and progress this way? So you pedal into the first couple of smaller jumps, like your picture, whoever's picture it was, but do that all in reverse. Use both of those pictures you had as 2 lines with a berm coming through here without removing any of these trees to feed back that way.
You're talking about this being the return.
This will be a return back to the back instead of being the start.
It's kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah, that's
If we're worried about that.
a lot of the people that come here, what they like is the elevation to be able to get the speed.
Correct.
Now,
If you're
Rob's
using this
idea.
elevation to get speed, you're not progressing over these jumps. And you're causing people like the guy who just rode through to roll down and create more erosion every time they ride down this hill.
I think the main problem, it's a good idea for sure, but I think the main problem over here is if you want to see progression, you don't want to be pedaling. At the moment you add pedals
You're going to
to
have
go
to
up
pedal
and
one
down,
way or the
that's
other to
when
get
people
something
tend to
going.
crash.
If you're pedaling from, everyone's coming in from back there and pedaling and dropping in here. So saying you're just rolling in, I've only seen me do it. Is anyone else starting from here?
And everybody starts from here pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
I've never been on a
everybody
ride
starts
and
from
not
up
seen
here.
someone start back there where that front room is tied up.
If you look at race stages, any other place around Texas area, you will have fine bunches and stuff. And that's
So why not ride there if you want to do that?
but that,
Why not ride at one of those other places if you want to do a drop-in instead of coming this way? I'm not trying to cover, I'm just trying to open it
Well,
up
this
as
is
an
10
idea.
minutes from my house. Reveille Peak is an hour and a half drive.
yeah,
I could ride from my house to
No,
here.
that's good input. It's just,
for sure.
That's
So
good
if you
input.
look at it in a way that you want to climb stuff, for
I
sure.
don't want to climb at all.
So then definitely, if your way to definitely look at it, right, you got the elevation to work with. You don't want to
There's
rebuild
elevation
anything
coming
better.
from the other side because you pedal
There
up
is,
to
for
the
sure.
park.
I
So-
think you got a good point too. There could be older jumps in that side as well.
Yeah, well,
Absolutely.
but coming
I
off
think
of one
this too.
big fast jump and then using smaller jumps, you're already going to be carrying speed. So now someone's going to skid up the next jump. And then someone's going to skid up the next jump because they can't slow down their speed. They don't have those
That's
skills.
why I suggested having a step up, because the step up
Right.
slows your
Yeah.
speed.
Yeah.
Rollers
The
slow your
leapier it
speed.
is, the more high
But step-ups are scary looking.
My concern is if you send people from the other side, you'll end up with a lot of cross traffic, because you're still going to have a lot of people trying to come in from this side.
Well, that's
You'll have
you
people
block it
going in
off.
both
You've got
directions.
barrier tape everywhere around here already.
People will take down that barrier tape.
It's a warning tape, but yeah, you know what I'm saying. But also, if you filled in some of this erosion that's already happening,
we're also going
now
to
you're
try to
gonna
take some
have
of
to
these fences
drop
down
off.
too.
Part of it. I think we
So-
can build it.
So guys, so one of the things that Rob just mentioned, right, is in design of the trail. Understandably, when you're going down, you are going to have and potentially cause some erosion. It's about the trail design and how you create it. Rob's idea was to put a lip, kind of a hump over it. What that's going to do is going to make the water come, instead of going down and draining and causing further erosion, it's going to redirect the water in a different way. So it's about the trail design.
Yep.
Right? Now the other thing is that there are a lot of people that come here, and your idea is a very good one, and I'm not arguing that fact. You probably would get more progression. There is a slope on that side. We've got Oldemar on that side. There's a lot of stuff for the people that know where you can come in. But the majority of what I've seen in the years that I've been coming to the park, and it's your experience and using it, is that people like the fast takeoff to get air. The reason that the jumps were built up like a BMX jump is because now we have more dirt jumpers. I see one here in front of me, or two. You've got people who want to get air. You want different types of takeoffs, different types of lifts, different types of progression. So designing for that, designing for multiple lines as efficiently as you can, but making them as durable as possible, because you are in a creek. I think it's something that everybody should discuss and hear about.
But to Billy's point, I think there's 2 points there. One is the progression about putting the big feature last as opposed to the big feature first. The other point, though, I think is what I heard you say was watching that rider that just went by locking up the brakes the whole way down.
Yeah.
Like, that's a thing. We've all, let's just be honest, we've all either done it or we've watched somebody do it, right?
Beginners will do that. They'll roll up to the edge and then they'll just ease on the brake all the way down.
And that's what you want to leave. If you have a progression that should minimize the big, the black dot.
That's part of why we want to have signs, so that you know this is what you're getting into.
If you didn't ride here 15 years ago, this roll-in was this color.
Yeah.
Right.
You couldn't see the roots. You couldn't even see a rock.
That's right.
It takes a little bit of work on Google to find a picture, but there are pictures of these 3 roll-ins and roll-ins down there where there are no rocks visible.
Yeah.
But beginners dragging their brakes, whether they're skidding or not, moves dirt.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then it allows for the water to make it worse.
Yeah.
Hey Sean,
But I will say,
resources
I mean,
that are going to be for this?
I don't know all of you,
What monetary resources?
but I've been an on and off
Oh.
San Antonio resident
Well, I guess
for
Let's try to stay one conversation,
20
please.
years. I was a digger when this was first built, and if you don't put
Yes,
in
but
the
it's
effort
difficult
to
showing
maintain
3
it,
registered
it
professionals
will
in the entire
dirt
state.
erode,
The closest
dry
one's being in Kerrville and
erosion,
Austin.
and blow away in the wind
Firm I work
before
for
it
is
floods
currently going
again.
through the application process to try to become
I
a
have
professional
personally,
trail builder.
maybe I'm the instigator, maybe some
Hopefully
of you
by
are
the
going to
end
be
of the
pissed
year,
at me,
we'll have
whatever.
team in
I've
town.
personally brought in over 400 gallons of water this summer alone. No other person other than a helper with me on one day brought in a drop of water that I know of. Okay, take that back. I saw 2 empty gallon containers that somebody was drinking, and they were left down there. I don't know if they used any on the dirt or not. Everybody here claims to love dirt. Cool. Help shape the dirt, help keep the dirt in place. It's gonna take volunteer labor because the city can barely keep that gate over there open because of the amount of trash that comes in here.
I think that's part of the discussion that we have to have is how we're going to deal with this after we build. Like, if you just put all this effort to build stuff, and I think Gino brought this up, you know.
We have to have stewardship of the trails.
So I got a quick question.
And in the past, parks may have not been very willing to work with us, but the current parks administration loves us because we do all this free work for them.
So
So,
yeah, I was just on an assignment in Albuquerque, and they have a pretty nice dirt jump spot in the city. It's city-owned, sponsored, and there are 3 key water access out there that have access to the keys to turn on water for maintenance required under dirt. If you're going to build anything with dirt, you need access to water.
Yeah.
Is that something that you could get out here?
Well, we don't really have a hose spigot anywhere near here, so it would have to be brought in with a water truck, or like Ben was doing.
I mean, they got stuff on the baseball park. I mean, maybe even now.
At Walnut Creek, they have a 275-gallon food service container that they have the luxury of being able to fill with a submersible pump whenever the creek is up. But a blivet like that can instill in the community of riders that personal responsibility. If you go to Walnut Creek and there's water in the blivet, you hand water jumps and the lines before you ride. And if somebody rides up and you're already riding and it's clear nobody has watered, they're going to call you out on it.
Yeah.
And then say, hey, join me, let's water these in.
No, I get that. So can we get something like that out here?
We can table that and take it.
I think we're going to have to get Parks help on that.
Yeah,
There's also trails out here that they soil tax.
There used to be water in here.
Yeah.
I think that's a good suggestion, and something we, like I said, there's stuff we can do organically, and then there's stuff we got to get, the powers that be to help on. I think that's something that's vital long
Same setup
term.
they have at Graveyard as well.
Yeah, for sure.
There you go. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're stuck with like a water buffalo or porting, which sucks.
Well, and what are we going to do to protect it too? It's like you're saying, can we put concrete on them?
Maintenance is the key.
No, but that was part of my idea, to use rock as the base shape. So, say you got a takeoff, you build as much of that takeoff as you can out of rock, and then you hard pack 4 to 6 inches of dirt on top of it. You still got to use water, but it's minimal. So even if the water erodes away, that rock still keeps a basic shape, and you just got to put more dirt on it.
Or
and water it.
if it makes sense, you could use a rock slab for those.
Also in this area, if you dig down about 6 inches, you hit that real hard caliche clay, and that stuff hardens almost like a rock. So that should help with this as well.
With our, there's volunteers, and there's some of us that'll put money in for this. But could we do something like soil task or something like that to hold it together?
Possibly. There is a wildlife trough that has a water line that fills it off that direction.
That soil tack is like a glue that you put in the dirt.
Yeah, I've heard of that. That's something if that's a suggestion, we'll have to take it.
Okay. Yeah.
Just like the water.
Because it's not cheap, but it's something that if everyone,
I've seen
if
it. They
10
have
people
it
sit
at
there.
Harburger Park.
They have it at Harburger Park.
So
Soil tack is like a glue. It was originally
Yeah,
for
yeah.
making runways.
That's good for flat trails.
What I see in Bradley too, that they're using the one claps, but they're also doing the concrete, the takeoffs, which it was pretty interesting as well. They took rocks and then they set up that takeoff with a little bit of concrete. So it's like a 4-inch, maybe like 2 to 4 inches.
So the flood zone, flood zone is the big concern here, and what the parks will allow. So
Parks probably won't like us putting concrete.
Yeah, for sure.
So some Jeff Jordan with Storm. I know some of y'all know me, some of y'all hate me.
Jeff doesn't have access to a bulldozer, by the way. I just want to clear that up right now.
Bulldozer.
Jeff does
Everybody thinks you drive around the bulldozer destroying jumps.
Yeah, my little pump.
That legend will grow this week.
So, 2 things. First thing, to address Sean and Steve's comments earlier about if anybody has any ideas about features, trails, whatever, anywhere on city property, city parks and stuff like that, propose them to us. Tell us where you'd like to see it, what you'd like to see. We will work with parks. We'll look to see if we're allowed to build there. Some parks, some property we're not allowed to build. Just off limits. No discussion. Other places we can, but it just depends on where it is. And I've got the maps online. I'll start posting them on our site where it shows all the floodplains on the greenways and the parks and things like that. And building in floodplains is very difficult because that's why you can't do wood features so many places, because anything that could potentially wash downstream and create a damming effect and back water up and potentially flood neighborhoods, it's going to be a hard no.
Can I piggyback on that for a second?
And yeah, So let me just finish this. So as far as these fall line trails that have gotten so eroded, if you just take like a string across from side to side, you can see how much they've eroded. So what we've seen in the past, what probably needs to be done, is to bring all those trails, all those lines back up to grade, maybe a little bit higher, and then we have like what are called grass stone pavers. You've been over turkey roofs. We put some in there. We armor that whole down drop in, and so that once we get the shape the way you want it, you armor it, and it's that way it won't go anywhere, it won't erode. You got plenty of grip going down, and then it's good. And then again, about the lip here, it doesn't have to be a lip.
Right.
It can just be enough to where it prevents the water from out here, because all wants to run this way. We just need to direct it someplace. We can't just put a lip and say, "Yeah, we're done." We have to tell it where to go.
Rise it.
And there's an organization called the Professional Trail Builders Association.
Yeah.
We follow their suggestions and their criteria when it comes to making trails, because nobody wants to build something that's going to require this much maintenance. Like, we want to build it, and if it has to be maintained, minimal. That way you get to ride more than you get to work.
Yeah, hence the one to use the rock slabs wherever possible, because again, maintaining dirt, and especially suboptimal dirt that we can't necessarily bring in good dirt to do stuff, it's just a huge time suck.
Yeah, and while we're doing it, we have to avoid, we have to be conscientious of where the water is going to pool, and try to avoid water pooling.
Yeah.
And also, we're going to need a bunch of test riders from beginner to expert
I
to
don't know
test
if we'll
ride
get
it and
any
give
of
us
those
feedback
here.
on what it is while we're building
There's
it.
also a company called Geotex. They make various fabrics for soil retention.
Yes, they do.
That might be something like to look at. So you have the rock base, and dirt on top of that, but put the Geotex fabric in to help stabilize the soil.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I think
use
it
geotex with the crushed
serves the
rock,
purpose
but-
that it's
Well, they
more
have various
permeable
types.
too.
They have about
So
200 different
Jeff
products.
said something really important. Look, everybody that's here, there's a lot of different communities of riders here and builders here. Jeff said something really important about not using wood features. So there's this thing going around San Antonio. I'm throwing this out there because if you're here, you care, or you wouldn't be wasting your Saturday morning on this, right? So when you go back and you talk to your buddies, the no wood features thing doesn't exist. Don't introduce things in the floodplain that can cause downstream jamming of the flood control system is what exists. There's places in town, stop me if I'm wrong, there's places in town where we can build things with wood features, and we can do things that we can't do in areas like this. So I know there's a lot of people who have some great ideas and great carpentry skills. Grab a hold of Jeff or John Rodriguez and start talking about, wasn't it Clausen Ranch you were telling me?
We
Clausen
can
Studio?
do,
Has to be rock
we can
there.
talk about Devil's Den, not Clausen, it's a natural area.
Oh, so Clausen has to be rock, but
Yeah, it has to.
so there's
Some
places
wood
where we
features
can
on
build.
Salado Creek.
And John has
There's-
plans
yeah.
for some big
Yeah.
rock jumps there.
So it's
and
not that we,
Awesome.
it's not that there's like a there's this idea that there's a citywide we hate progressive features. I don't think that's really the case. I think the case is they want things built sustainably. They want things built where they can legitimately be maintained and where they're not going to cause further problems for the city that they got to spend money on downstream. And they want it to go through the process. So if you got ideas, bring them forward. But here we're going to have to be a little bit more careful about what we put in, unfortunately.
Yeah,
and
'cause,
with
I mean,
the-
it wasn't just the jumps that people were addressing. Hikers were coming through here and addressing the trees that were falling, the exposed root zones, and saying, hey, there's some pretty heavy erosion along Red Trail. And
Yeah.
going to parks is one thing, but when they also go to city council, they're getting bombarded by these complaints. So
Also, when the
that's how we
erosion
find ourselves here
stops,
today.
comes
One
this
thing I
trail.
want to suggest that has not been suggested in McAllister, that has not been done, it's been suggested a million times, is down only,
Yeah.
along
Yeah.
here, just along here.
This one way down there.
Yeah, one more
Because
track.
I
And
know
then
that
that will
the,
be with the sign.
other than just riders riding up, I know the runners use it as hill training, so in order to build
Yeah.
for the
It's got to be
downhill,
directional.
it's got to be
yeah.
directional, but just this way, that's all I'm suggesting.
I think that's a good put.
Yeah.
So as far as wooden features, I mean, we got like almost $3.5 million in the city bond for mountain bike parks and trails and stuff. So one is going to be an expansion of the McAllister Park pump track skills area with an intermediate loop that's going to have more more difficult wooden features around it. And then there's the Opie Schnabel Bike Park Complex with the meeting coming up on Tuesday the 9th, and they got 20 acres. I mean, they've got lots of money to do a master plan and build stuff. So, I mean, this is where if you want that kind of stuff, that's where it needs to go, because it's going to be professionally built by,
Yeah, and you got to make sure the wood can not only tolerate the rains that we get, but the 100-degree temperatures that bake wood in the summertime. It's got to be a strong enough wood that can hold up.
Well, those things don't. There's rough cuts here.
Just to narrow the focus, I know we all want to see features throughout San Antonio. We want to see features throughout. Let's focus on this, right? So, armoring the trails, design of the trails, going back to armoring of the trails. There's something that Jeff mentioned, and those brick pavers. We were able to armor certain places that had standing water in them. They've worked phenomenally. David and I can both tell you, because we've both been to Virginia Key, that the trails, the downs, and the ups are armored with those same brick pavers, because there's no soil. There's a lot of rain. It's Miami. Everybody, if nobody knows where Virginia Key is, they have somehow more elevation, and they're flat, and it's because they're able to solidify those takeoffs and those the entries by armoring them, and they keep the erosion, and they've been hit with hurricanes and tropical storms, and they're still standing.
Yeah.
Trees not so much, but everything else was. The dirt was there. So one is, I think we're all in agreement that we want to save these features as much as it's a want, because it is in a flood zone. We're limited to the resources that we can use and how we can do it, because it is part of SARA, because it is part of the floodplain. So let's focus on the design agreement, who can volunteer to be able to come in and put the blood, sweat, and tears into digging, armoring, shoring it up, and making sure that we have input from the entire community to say, okay, do we want to do a large tabletop with a step up after it? Do we think that maybe we should do something else, a couple of small tables? How do we progress? Where is it that we can come in as a community and just not say, well, they built a tabletop, but it's only this big, nobody can send it, and then somebody else is going to come in here, throw dirt on top of it, and have another, steep angle, and then Parks and Rec is going to come in and say, we're done.
One question in terms of using dirt to build up. If we're trying to take dirt from other areas and we're damaging other areas, so is it possible to have dirt brought in?
That's a good question.
It has a higher clay content.
Is that even doable, Jim? It has to do with what we can bring in because of the flood zone. Typically, they don't let us bring dirt in to areas like a floodplain. If it was an eroded, like the red trail down that way, gullied out and eroded, places that were totally eroded, we can bring dirt back in to bring it back to grade and fix the trail. But as far as bringing dirt in, just like build a mound, down there, that's usually not good. But we can always.
What if we had excess dirt from fixing this area and building it?
Well,
back
like
to
if
grade?
you've gone down there, there's a bunch of dirt
Yeah,
that's now
it
been
looks-
piled
if you
up.
walk down
I've
there, it
heard
looks like
that you
there's plenty
always
of dirt.
order 50% overage just in case the dirt contracts as it gets wet. Just, that way if you happen to have half of, again, as much dirt as you really need to build a mound.
I'm more worried about not having enough rock.
And again, that's going to influence the design, right?
Rock we typically buy and bring in.
There's a
I think if we need to bring in anything, it might be rock.
Yeah.
Some of that,
So that's
belongs to parks for their projects. Now, some of the bull rock belongs to Storm, but we can purchase rock once the design is done and it's approved. We can purchase rock to bring in. That's not the issue. It's just getting a design that parks will approve based on the location. That's the main thing.
Is there like a PDF available with like graphs of each line and how big the respective features?
Just the big line. The other lines are not as long. So say for example, if you go down this one here or the two middle ones behind you, there's enough room for a jump, and then the line pretty much ends after that because you got a lot of trees in the way, and then it turns into the return line. This far one over here though, it's much longer, probably by at least 50 to 100 feet. So the far line has enough room to build multiple jumps. These first two may only have 1 or 2 jumps. The far line is the only one we have a design for right now because it already has a big natural tabletop. We just need a lip on one side, a landing on the other side, like it was before. Just a little bit stronger construction, hopefully with a lot more large rock. And then after that one, the line is straight for a while. Plenty of room to put 2 more features.
So your idea was really good. Your drawing. I don't want to take away from that with what I said earlier.
Yeah, and I don't want to be a dictator saying my design rules. Like I want to hear what other people.
Some things about what you put together in your ideas. I ran Lone Star BMX for almost 10 years.
Yeah, I used to ride there all the time.
And one of the things that concerns me with the safety for everybody that's coming out here is going from that big jump to smaller and making the last one a roller. If you're making a double, that last jump probably shouldn't be it if it's going to be smaller than the ones preceding it. Because people are going to come in with speed that they artificially have, and then they're going to hit those jumps. And while a step up's going to slow you down, those 2 rollers, now the next person's going to clip. I would suggest tabletops across it all, because one, you can jump and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
2, everyone can progress on those. You want to do backflips, you can do a backflip over. You want to jump and catch air, you can catch air on them.
Yeah.
It's all in that design, but you're taking out the risk of nosing in and
Do you think a smaller tabletop?
Yeah, the progression, or I guess that would be regression, going from a big jump to smaller and smaller. Make those tabletops with more and more backside for the landing.
So that you get more pump.
Well, no, less pump, because you're trying to slow down.
Okay.
Because you don't want to gain speed as you're going down.
Yeah.
Whereas if you were coming this way,
if you look, there's already a huge mound right there that makes a tabletop.
Yeah.
It's full of roots from the surrounding trees.
I think we kill trees and get out.
Yeah, I don't want. I'm removing any trees.
I mean, I don't know what else you can do with that. You can maybe put some rollers in there, but I think you'll be going so fast you'll clear them all.
So would you guys like to do threshold?
I think that would be great. Yeah.
They had a
in Google Drive, have like you just check what you want people to have, name, contact, ideas, formats, etc. Just so it makes your job easier to filter through all the data. Whatever you guys have.
So to Billy's point about decreasing speed and all, one of the things that I personally like about what was built here before is that as you hit the end, if you can navigate that corner, that's that right there, you can almost pump your way the whole way back. Right. And I think that's something that's important to preserve, and maybe if we're worried about speed at the distant end, maybe there's a way to build a berm or something to kind of catch some of that and because my recollection is it was really flat before.
Yeah, and I mean that is a good area to build up a little berm, and then perhaps on the return trail we put in a couple of rollers.
Just a couple
so
little rollers, and like where Billy was talking, you know, if you want to pedal and you build the rollers right, it's kind of like out at the pump track.
Yeah.
Well-spaced rollers can easily become little floppy jumps, or maybe even a little double if you want to pedal really hard. Or if you're fat and lazy like me, you just
right. Well, if you're bringing out machinery, making jumps and rollers, it's just it's the skill of that driver.
We'll probably end up hand building a lot of it.
Yeah.
Just because Parks wants to be the only people that use machines. So.
But we can also look into asking how much.
So we can ask them to help us with dirt, moving dirt here and there.
And with Steve's return line, like he was talking about, if you build rollers, if you put them 15 feet peak to peak, you're making them nice and mellow,
nice
making them like nice wavy. You can manual through them, you can pump them, you can do whatever, and you can do the entire line could just be rollers back, or whatever.
Yeah, we don't think you should have to pedal until you get
to the
right
climb.
to the incline.
Yeah.
Correct. I have to say
that
this
will help a
because
lot with
otherwise he'll be mad at me, but Leo Trevino requests that we put a chairlift in at the bottom. Throw a rope.
How about a T-bar?
I just want everybody to know that was Leo.
There you go, a T-bar.
It'll be the kind with the frisbee that you stick between your legs
Exactly
and you have
right.
to hold onto your bike with one hand and the rope with the other hand.
About one of those flat escalators that you have
There you go. Yeah, man.
Maybe you can get Rolling Oaks Mall to donate an escalator. They're not using it much.
Hey Sean, I wanted to say that I appreciate this time for sure, and getting everybody together. That's kind of the key. There's a lot of times anger because people might just go and put a lot of hours and sweat, and it gets demolished. But I think this is kind of helping out also understand that there's a process behind, and there's a lot of bureaucracy, unfortunately, right from the city perspective. But I think if we all get together, plan it out, put all the ideas on the table, we can make this thing pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I think
and
that's what I saw in Florida. That's what I saw in Bentonville also, and Sedona as well. Florida, they had trailheads with individuals that were responsible for that area. So you're in Fox Park, that's your stuff. So you have a couple of guys that will be responsible to maintain it, and you guys can go in and say, okay, everything looks good, we're fine. Anything that needs to build, they go and approve. So it's the same with every other area,
And
I think that helps a lot.
like places like Parkwood over in Leon Creek, it'll probably be people that live around the area.
Correct, yep.
I'm just not even 2 miles down the Salado Creek Greenway, so I'm here in 10 minutes. And I know there are a lot of guys that actually live in the houses around these neighborhoods. So
Yeah, if you count.
it'll be a team effort for sure.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we've got to take ownership of the trails. It's just as much as bureaucracy sucks, we kind of need to use it now because this has happened before, many times. And whether it's a skid steer that is being brought in by parks, or whether it's just horrendous heavy rains that flood the area so bad that by the time the water is gone, it's destroyed. There's a lot of different techniques and methods we can use to make it strong enough so that it lasts a lot longer. And if any work does need to be done to maintain, it's made minimally. And we can put some signs up to make it inviting. And then also perhaps put another sign up that says whatever the misdemeanor $250 fine is for illegal digging. That way, if park police come out here and find somebody, it's a lot easier for them to write citations because there is a sign. So yeah, and putting signs by each of the trails to kind of have a green circle, a blue square, and a black diamond for beginners and people to progress, it makes it inviting, letting people know that, hey, the sign's up, we've done this, we've taken ownership of it, we're trying to maintain it, write it as much as you want.
And what about create another spot for these guys that like to fly through the air? I mean, there's that one big downhill spot over there by the power line. I mean,
yeah,
like
and that's why I was suggesting building a slope line somewhere else.
I think maybe if we can be successful at building this, I think that's the next thing we ought to do is remember that not everybody rides what we ride, and let's go build something that's good for them.
Yeah, for me, that'll be the next item. As soon as this is finished, it's going to switch to, okay,
what's next?
Where can we build something where people can go big?
Build these good riders a spot, man. So they don't have to
And if they're given a spot, they won't want to do this.
And don't forget that there are currently options available if you want to start designing anything else.
Yeah.
I would just ask to
Boston
please.
Tubing, John Rodriguez has designed those mountain bike only trails out there, and he's going to do some rock jumps and things like that. So if you want to have input on those kinds of things,
So
it'll help
the guy
out.
that built these jumps, maybe he could figure out another spot where he could build a place better than what he had built here.
He's moving to Houston.
Oh, they got a bunch of build going on out there. But I think getting all the guys that got to build and stuff together will be key for us, really.
Yeah.
Everybody on the same page, we all can collaborate. We can go further, we can definitely get better stuff. And I think everybody will have a bunch of ideas. I just put them all on the table and see what can get approved.
And I don't know if everybody's informed of the bond vote that passed in May, but millions and millions of dollars for mountain biking only features, amenities, and parks are coming to San Antonio.
Take it easy, guys. Thank you.
The bond vote passed in May, and parks is the whole city of San Antonio, every department, streets, drainage, housing, and parks, they're all currently going through the process of requesting information, requesting qualifications, bidding out jobs. Many companies, including the architecture firm that I work for, are submitting bids to the city to get these jobs. As soon as the jobs are awarded and the contractors are picked, then people are going to go to work, probably in the fall, and come winter, maybe around the new year, you're going to see places like Pearsall Park with a ton of trails. You're going to see places like Eisenhower Park with its expansion and some proper downhill and enduro stuff. You're going to see another bike skills area out by OP Schnabel and Leon Creek. The money's there, the bond vote passed. It's just a matter of going through the bureaucracy to get it all done. But it is happening.
And on top of that, if you guys want to MTB optimize the trails or add to the trails, just reach out.
Yeah.
We'll let you know if that area, like we said, crossing from the rock would be easy, but there's other places.
Rock's good.
Yeah,
Doesn't wash away.
No, and there's boulders that John and I have looked at Leon Creek that can be offshoots.
Yeah.
And we'll be doing some stuff in Almost Mason Park as well. But again, just proposing things, getting approval, and again, almost all the trails are considered multi-user trails. So if we're going to put like mountain bike, technical trail features and stuff like that, we need to make sure they're like side by side, so we're not just replacing a flat trail with a jump, so that people can.
So real quick, really excited to hear about the growth. Really glad to see that here in San Antonio. I really appreciate you guys coming out and setting this up and making this an environment where folks can come in. And apologies if I missed this in the last 20 minutes or so, but is there a place where we can go and see like current status, next steps on like permitting, on any sort of zoning, on any sort of projects? Where is that information available at?
So on the Storm website, there's a trail projects page that I desperately need to update. But we can put all this stuff on there. I'll do the
Is there anything like
you know what they could use? You know what they could use? They could use a volunteer. They could use a volunteer who knows Microsoft, who will help maintain that webpage.
I'm gonna give an open invitation right now. We do not have database analysts, volunteers, and we do not have people that make website pages.
Yeah.
So
I just pay for them to get
for you or for what?
Me, anybody. I mean,
I do GIS and I do our website, but
your website is a WordPress thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, just because
it's easy.
I don't want to spend all my time doing a website.
For mine. Yeah. So
and I'm looking into maybe either WordPress or Squarespace. I don't know, but I'm pulled in so many different directions. It would really be great if a professional web designer could volunteer and say, "I love mountain biking. I'll do it for you."
Yeah, we'll be looking for an intern, but we do have a trail projects page that's got a lot of the stuff in there, and like the Devil's Den trails. We just got 3 more miles of trails approved there that we're starting to cut in down there. So in Clausen Stubing, and I put maps and stuff. It's just I've been having a hard time keeping up with that, but I definitely as Sean starts getting this stuff, I'll create another entry for these jumps and start putting his designs, and we'll try to keep a timeline updated and things like that.
Yeah, and it's almost 10 o'clock, so unless anybody has other input,
let's just talk about the action.
I kind of like the idea of doing tabletop and then another tabletop and another tabletop.
Yeah. Well,
and the rollers we can save for the return trail.
Yeah, let's talk about action items for a second. I'll tell you what I heard, because meetings, if we don't take action are kind of useless, right? So first off is, I think Brenda and Jeff said you guys were going to put a Google folder or something that's not Microsoft out there.
Anthony's going to do that for us.
And you can always comment on the Facebook and Instagram pages too, and we'll include it in there.
All the social media.
So that'll hit social media, so everybody can submit your trail design ideas or requests or any input you have. The second thing I heard was we all recognize we need water. So I think there probably needs to be some after action thinking about that, both with parks, but maybe some of us who have contacts in the industry that, maybe we can get water trucked in periodically for trail maintenance days.
Or a water line from the street.
Or a water line from the street. There's things like that we should talk about. So can Storm take point on the discussion with the parks about that? And then I think the third thing is timeline. we need to have a timeline for when we're going to actually finalize the design, because we can't get it approved if we don't submit it. So what is a reasonable, like you guys, what's a reasonable amount of time, assuming that folder's up on the web sometime next week?
I can probably do the designs for the other lines within a week or two.
So those designs include like drawings to sort of show the shapes, the profile shapes?
Kind of the same way I did this. What I did basically was I just drew a side profile of the jumps, and I dimensioned them.
Well, not that it's a jump, but it's
before I did that, I came out here with a field
line.
tape and took measurements of the natural terrain.
So input, and then after the input, getting all that
Right.
out. So it would only take you 2 weeks. So how long for the input?
Maybe get like 2 weeks for folks to submit ideas and then start sketching at that point, Sean?
Well, I thought this was the input. So
Well, maybe that's a better way. Maybe, Sean, if you
we're getting this input so we can
why
finalize the design.
don't you put design in there, and then we'll load that in the folder and have people come up on the net and say, hey, this is what I like or don't like.
Yeah, put it like, but you have to have like a profile for each run.
Yeah, after I finish a profile for each run, then we can put that up, leave it there for say 3-4 days, and let people comment on it, and then submit it to Parks and
And if you put the grid lines on it, that way people can say like between like 0.5, 0.7 to do this, and then between like 15 and 32 do this.
This is definitely up to y'all because it takes quite a bit more. It'd be another meeting, but I think it'd be great if we get all the design ideas and then come and do a walkthrough. Of like, this is where this would be, this is where this would be, this is where this would be. And then like from that point.
Yeah, well that's how I create each design, is I come through, I walk it with a measuring tape, and I don't mean a tape measure, I'm talking like 100-foot field measuring tape.
So Sean, not disrespectful.
So
I'm hearing a lot of my design. Again, I think what we want to do, the first design that's been submitted, the only design that's been submitted, to be perfectly honest, I think is a good one, right? But we want to make sure that this isn't perceived as XC riders made this jump, or these people made these jump. So having public input to say, here's what we need to focus on. No wood features because of this, and this. These are the features that we're looking for. These are the kind of things that we're looking for. What do you like? Have public input about it.
And to address what
I didn't know XC riders made jumps.
That's a very good point. I think that we can mitigate that by having some of our great people that know how to write go and post copy paste across all of these.
If I could just say, it might be more efficient if we took a couple weeks for Sean to come up with a draft. Maybe take 3 or 4 days, a week for not just this group, but anybody that's out there in the community that wants to provide some input to the paper design. Let Sean clean it up, 30 days or so, we ought to be able to come back out here just like we did today, have a real quick walkthrough, if anything needs flagged, or, Rob, if you see something that's weird ecologically, then we can have that quick conversation and we can finalize. But what I would personally like to see, just because there's a lot of, chatter out there that nothing ever gets done. I'd love to see us get to the point where we can submit something in 30 to 45 days to the city, and then break ground and have this done by early fall.
Yeah, I'd like to see it done in even half that time.
Yeah, maybe in August.
So one thing, to add to that, okay, absolutely, we're developing a timeline. So we're looking at 45 days.
Maybe less.
Maybe less.
Just to give you a rough idea on how long that took
Sean,
me, it was like 3 hours.
All right, so one at a time. So with that said, communication. Communication on all the platforms.
So I'm going to take that personally. I've already told Jeff and Brenda and Sean that I'm their monkey typist.
No, and again, the fact that Steve is volunteering is great, but having that communication, having that timeline, having that published, letting people know, but also not just digital communication.
Yeah, face to face.
Signage as well. To let people know this is coming soon. Here's a timeline. Here's where you can go see the timeline. Right? Input your ideas. Having something, a dumb sign, because everybody's into digital, but not everybody knows where to go and find it. So posting it here, where, hey, I think this jump, what happened to them?
Well, and evangelizing too when you're out there riding with somebody.
Correct.
I think what you're going to see is that after this meeting, you're going to see a post from one of the members saying, hey, this this is what we discussed, this is kind of the action, current status, next steps, and then I would expect that to continue as we, hey, Sean's got all his drawings up. We're going to open it up for a week on the Google Drive. I think you're going to see that kind of communication and visibility. And then the signs is a fantastic idea. Adding a QR code or something would be awesome.
And I wanted to add to that to make, obviously, Facebook posts could be super long. That's fine. Instagram needs to be short and simple. Yeah. Thinking about it, simple, stupid.
They limit you as to how much you can type too, I think.
So,
definitely have
Steve, as far as your long narratives, we could do it as a blog post on the Storm website, and then do the newest stuff at the top. Each time you add one,
that's a good idea.
So you can see a whole history of it, and then people can go to that website and see everything. So if they miss one social media post, a lot of people still
they get the whole history.
Yeah, not on Facebook.
Do we know?
I'll get with you offline about mechanics on that.
Yeah, definitely.
But I have the whole history, so.
Yeah, so it's easy. It's pretty easy to do.
Do we know, Jeff, how long Parks usually takes for approving submissions? So say we submit our plan, our idea, is it like a 30-day turnaround or 7-day turnaround, or does it just depend on their workload?
Since it's so small area, this would just come through and do a walkthrough with Parks. It really depends on their availability. But I would, once we have design, then we can do a walkthrough. I would think they can usually do it within a week or so.
Okay,
because it shouldn't take long to do a walkthrough and talk about design.
Yeah. So then that means our plan will take longer to form than the actual approval, and that's good news. So as far as the timeline goes, once we got our design, we submit to Parks. Parks can approve it in a week or two, and then we can schedule work days after that.
Now, I'll reach out to Parks about getting restrictions about that, the soil tack and the other kinds of things, and what can and can't use down in the floodplain, stuff like that, so we don't do a bunch of false starts about let's do this, let's do that.
Soil tax allowed. We have representatives from FOMP and from Parks, so let's, I mean, if we can hear from you guys concerns or how you see this going.
It all sounds great. I mean, Prince McAllister put in trails in McAllister Park many years ago. The conversation is also about sustainability and responsible recreation, and we use land. We need to take care of it so we can continue to enjoy those things that we do.
And I joined Friends of McAllister Park, so I'm going to their meetings now too.
Good.
Yeah. My last 2 cents would be, in terms of doing all this, is also trying to get people who are like in the category like 15 to 20 involved in doing this, and then also those maybe like 20 to 30, because I'm getting too old to do this.
I was going to say, I know where this one's going,
I have some good news for that. Friends of McAllister Park has a youth group that wants to join their organization now.
Yeah, but also if you're young and planning to go to college,
I bet we can find
this is great for college applications.
Ryder's coming.
You know who else I found out is always willing to move rocks? CrossFit.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's good. I know a guy.
Yeah, I know a couple of guys.
Bit of competition out here.
I have a trail out behind my backyard fence, and my neighbor, he's built like a mule, and he'll go out there and help me move rocks just for a workout. And he's a lot bigger than me, so he can move rocks like this.
So I would propose, let's go ahead.
Yeah.
I just have to say, I'm Sandy Jenkins, and I'm responsible for removing what you see here. I apologize. The communication fault was mine. We did meet out here and say that this was an impediment. It was a problem.
Yeah.
And when we saw it, when I saw it, I talked to our folks and I said, let's try to do this before the end of the year. Well, the end of the year came so it happened really fast, and then I was out of town on a work trip this week, so I apologize. But I felt very compelled to come out on my day off. So I don't ride, so anything that you all do, I can tell you that Meredith has moved on, and Meredith is another person to work with you all, but I'm here and I'm committed, and I apologize for the miscommunication.
Ryder's coming.
Because that wasn't me, so.
Well, I appreciate you personally. I just appreciate
Thank you,
coming out and
Sandy.
sharing that with us. And I love the fact that we got somebody in Parks that wants to partner with us.
Oh, absolutely.
I've been riding out here for almost a decade or so, and I love riding at this park. I probably ride here 3 days a week, 4 days a week. it's convenient, but it's more than just being convenient. It's a place where you can be social with your friends and you can do kind of any kind of riding you want to do. It'd be nice to be able to restore this the way it was when I was learning. So, thanks very much. And I tell you, it means that, I'm just going to speak on behalf of some of the folks here. I think it means a lot when somebody at the parks comes out and says, hey, we could have done that better. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. We could have done it better too.
Well, I just know that, I mean, Jessica was out here, Jeff was out here, you know, we had several people out here with the council office, and it was like, I don't want somebody getting hurt.
Right.
And then I took Park Police out here, and Park Police tells me whenever they have problems, you know, like, we have problems with the dog park with break-ins and all of that, but they tell me, you know, hey, if somebody really got hurt here, that would be a real problem. You know, and then the fire department communicates with me and tells me, you know, hey, can you trim up this bridge? Can we do this? You know, and, you know, because we want people to be safe.
It's a never-ending problem.
It is. So thank you. Thank you.
So Jeff and Sean, and Brenda, we should probably collect afterwards, document, put something back out to the group, and kind of work on that timeline a little till you're happy. Do we need to do anything else today? Do we have any other business we need to accomplish? Because I know we've already lost a few people who want to ride, and I see pedals moving.
Does anybody else have any other suggestions other than the tabletops?
Maybe like an A and B line instead of committing like a whole line to one thing.
Well, that's why we have 4 separate lines.
Yeah. No, I know, but like if your expert line is just tables,
Yeah, that's a good
maybe
point. I think
that adds diversity in a limited space. You know, you have more than you get more bang for your buck.
So, are you suggesting having a B line on the expert line?
Yeah. So like if there are tables, but there's also maybe doubles on the left side. There's tables on the right side, doubles on the left. I'm not talking about the whole line. I'm talking about after your main features.
Yeah.
On the back, like I don't know, 50 feet or whatever you have to work.
So like if you have a 10-foot wide jump, you can split it down the middle and have a 5-foot table and 5-foot doubles.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you sketch? Or do you draw anything up? Or do you, or if you could, yeah, if you,
I think that might be a good idea. Well, since a lot of these lines go to the same, the width is the issue. So if a lot of these lines go to the same place and go out to the end,
I know what he's talking about. I've seen it before. And I'm originally from Colorado. We throw ourselves off mountains just for fun there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just the pastime.
So
everything doesn't have to be straight.
You can have it for the post for the bond meetings, for all the different public input meetings for all the mountain bike parks and trails and projects. So we really need printouts from the mountain bike community to show your support and have your ideas.
Probably 17 ball.
We don't show, mountain bikers don't show up.
Like maybe a 5
it'll be a disc golf course or pickleball court. So you know you gotta have a good. And if you can't show up, they usually have the SA Speak Up polls that you can write in and do stuff online. So that's really important. It's important for us to get that so many people showed up that we got the 20 acres set aside for a bike park complex at the old golf course back in 2018. Without that, we wouldn't have funding to build the bike park now. So.
Yeah, and we're scheduling group rides and stuff too, so we can talk about it more in the future as well.
20 acres is way more than the rail yard at Rogers, Arkansas.
Amen, brother. Well, 20.
Yeah, we have a lot more
20
room
acres,
than
but by the time you bring in the buffers and all the other kind of stuff, I'm sure it won't be 20 acres.
No, but what I'm saying is we have an opportunity during planning to aim high.
Yes.
And if we don't consider what's been built and has been publicly ridden without waivers, without staff on site for 6 years in Rogers before that's designed, then we're going to miss a huge opportunity.
I mean, they don't have waivers or anything for the state parks and stuff like that. So, I mean, if it's a professionally built bike park, I mean, yeah, think big because you have a lot of space and you can't necessarily build all of it with the funds available this bond cycle, but we can get a master plan set to have a staged, phased in.
They built artificial elevation.
Right there. Yeah, so I'm looking at pump track, looking at stuff like the rail yard, the big features, jumps, progressive stuff.
So we'll get together and publish the minutes from this.
sweet. You guys, yeah. And that was great. Yeah, everybody will have a bunch of ideas. It's just kind of put them all in one place. Okay, this is what makes sense. Like what we can do, and just have that.
Cool.
Awesome.
And if you're not sure where to put stuff, just put it on Storm's Facebook or Instagram or Mountain Biking San Antonio, and we'll make sure it gets put in the appropriate folder.
All right.
Great meeting, guys. Thanks for coming.